today at my station we're going to talk about nematodes. Anybody, by a show of hands, know what a nematode is? Got a couple hands. Sort of, kind of. Anybody familiar with heartworms that dogs get? Okay, so that's typically what you're looking at when you're thinking of a nematode. They get in and they start to feed, and they're parasitic to mammals. Then we have plant parasitic nematodes, which are parasitic to plants. So they live in the soil, they're abundantly there, but what happens is when it's either moist water, like a moist environment, they typically swim in the water table, they move around, but when there's a host planted, they typically go in and invade the roots, and they start feeding on the roots. They like to feed on the feeder roots. So these are the females that live in the galls. So the juveniles are the ones that cause the problems. So they have piercing stylets, and they swim through the water table. They find a root that they like with the exudes. They know the root is there, the host is there. They pierce it, and they start to feed. And then whenever it's a female, juvenile turns into a female, she galls up the root and starts to protect herself and lays eggs. The best thing to do, anybody show of hands take soil samples? Soil samples. If you haven't, you got to start taking some soil samples, bless you, so you know that your soil is fertile. Fertility, you need to know what your baseline soil pH is, what your N, what your P and your K is, so then you know your plants are taking up the right nutrients. You can ask your county office if they will mail them for you. So some will have a courier service. You bring your samples to the extension office, and then they will take them to the diagnostic lab in Raleigh. So the NCDA, everybody familiar with the NCDA? North Carolina Department of Agriculture? Yes, they run a bunch of different samples. You can get plant tissue samples, you can get diagnostic samples, such as your soil samples done and your nematode samples done. It's a plethora of samples that they offer so that you can get an understanding of how your plants are growing. You can drill your soil sample. There's a hole in this bucket. Hole in the bucket. I need a reverse. And then your soil sample comes in the bucket. Typically when you have your crops, you try to get a universal sample. More random is better, so you can kind of get a plethora of samples. So typically within this field, you want, I would say, maybe 10 to 15 samples to get a universal sample with one bucket here, and you can homogenize and mix those samples together and then get a uniform sample. And you try to push as deep into the soil as you can. Pull it up, you'll get a sufficient sample. Hopefully it's that deep, but the soil is a little compacted right now. And you put it in your bucket. And you move to the next sample. We're gonna pretend like this is like 5 samples and that we did it like 5 times. You may have to push it out the core sometimes. And we're gonna go put it in our bag. So imagine we took enough soil and now we can split it into our different boxes. This is a full sample. We want it as full as possible. Yes. So within that plastic bag, you can twist it, close it up, and then mail it off.